So the purpose of the School of Imagination is to be a resource for students who wish to take their exploration of the human imagination to a deeper level. And to that end, we have lined up an amazing summer school series for said students, any of you who may be interested in this. And we have an awesome topic set up here. It's going to be a 5-class series, and then a 6th class, which would be a special Q&A on the very fascinating topic of, is modern science finally starting to catch up to the wisdom taught us by Neville Goddard? And I'm joined now with our special guest presenter, Shveta Hariharan, who has been a student of the School of Imagination for a long time. And also, a lot of you may recognize her as being the admin of the School of Imagination group on Facebook. And Shveta is going to give us a little bit of an intro into these classes that she has prepared for us and what to expect. Welcome, Shveta.
Thank you very much, Josiah. Yes, I'm really excited for the summer school series to be able to share some of the research that I've been undertaking for the past couple of years, actually. I've been a Neville student for about 3.5 to 4 years. And like many of you that are listening to this, I was blown away by his ability to hone in on the ultimate truth of who we really are and how reality works. I was really excited about his work, and I knew that because his work was so truthful and so absolute, that there had to be some parallels and to other areas of exploration of truth. We can think of science as being one of the biggest pillars in like our global community. And so I knew that if I intended for it, that I could find scientific parallels to everything Neville taught. So I spent a couple of years looking into the various literature that I could find, and that these classes are a result. Yes, science is in 2021 has developed a strong enough foundation to catch up to what Neville knew from his queries within. So I'm really, really excited to share what I've learned and what I've kind of come up with. Science is an exploration of the evidence of consciousness. So we know that the world is us pushed out and we are the cause, right? And science is an exploration of the world that we have already pushed out. If we explore science in light of Neville's truth, we can really further distill truth. And then, we can approach science from a perspective of ultimate truth.
Really cool. Yeah. So I think one of the questions that would come up is like, okay, why this series and why now? And it's as students, we here at the School of Imagination, we tend to take academic approach to learning about the human imagination. What I mean by that is we take it seriously, and I think that there's a value in looking at the science. Not just at the surface level, but also understanding that one of the gifts of science is a lexicon, kind of this resource of terminology that not only helps us conceptualize, these ideas that that Neville is talking about that are metaphysical in nature. So you kind of need, words and ideas to help conceptualize them. But science can be a resource for a lexicon, for a way of explaining things, which I think having that as a tool yields a lot of value for a student of Neville. And then also, here where we are in modern human society right now, science is really looked to as being kind of the high watermark of what we understand as a civilization about the nature of reality. So being able to really interpret this metaphysical understanding that Neville taught so beautifully through the lens of science, right? It's very illuminating to really see, how these ideas fit together, and then also be able to have that as a resource to go on and speak to other people from an informed level of understanding about science and about these concepts and how they illuminate each other.
I totally agree with that. Now I feel like I understand how all the pieces fit in together in a much more harmonious way that feels a lot more inclusive. Scientific theory feels like it's speaking to the ultimate truth of consciousness rather than being something that is the antithesis of what mystics were trying to say. It has also helped me improve my confidence in these ideas because currently in 2021, mainstream science is still pretty, not on board with the personal power to heal, personal power to create thing, right? We're still in a Newtonian mechanics framework of how the world works from a mainstream perspective. However, you explore in these other areas, from fringe science or in growing areas of science, and you realize, no, actually, the mainstream science that we hear about on a day-to-day basis is not the only story, and it's not the only evidence-based findings that prove what Neville taught. I think knowing the science behind Neville's teachings helps us reckon with the world of Caesar, helps us reckon with all the ways in which scientific theory kind of is involved in our lives. So it's really useful.
Let's take a look at these classes that we have lined up for this series. Go ahead and walk us through, just give us like the brief intro to what the class is about, and kind of walk us through what's available here.
So after that intro class where I'd like to introduce these ideas, the first class will be about the basics of quantum theory. Quantum theory being kind of the bedrock of a lot of what I'll be discussing in these classes. So basics of quantum theory, cosmology, and some general parallels. I'd like to set the stage as to what are the general parallels between quantum theory, which is about 100 years old now, even older than that, cosmology, which is a field of study that looks at the world, the universe at large, from a really large scale, and find out how that, interplays with some of Neville's basic teachings. We'll also cover some of the basic terms and definitions that we'll use throughout the remainder of the class. And the second class will be about the science behind the very important teaching that Neville had of everyone is you pushed out. So everyone is you pushed out is something that is explored a lot in all kinds of metaphysical teachers online and things, but what is the science behind it? And there's quite a bit of really good science on really sturdy research to explain how the mechanics of everyone is you pushed out works. We'll also, explore the importance of a strong self-concept and why a strong self-concept is incredibly important for how you show up in the world and how the world shows up for you from a scientific perspective. And we'll explore the concept of what Neville would call a deeper dimensional self when he talks about thinking fourth dimensionally. What does that mean from a scientific perspective? And we'll discover some of the remarkable parallels between what he taught about that and what science now knows as a matter of fact.
It sounds like there's some theory here, but it also sounds like you're making it practical and showing how it can be applied, which is really exciting too. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Yes, absolutely. One of the best things about Neville's teachings for me is that he spent some time putting together the theory, but he spent more time, giving us stories and practical techniques for us to be able to use this information to live the life that we want and discover who we are. So I'd like to do that as well. And so a lot of what I'll be able to do is either share a story and how I've used some of these techniques, and how I now view Neville's techniques now that we know the science, kind of expanding some of Neville's techniques. So absolutely, each of the classes will also have a practical takeaway.
It's really what science is. Science kind of illuminates, if you lift the hood and there's the engine, that's the science, right? And then it's the car just driving down the highway, that's the application, right? So kind of understanding how the engine works can kind of help you understand how the car drives down the highway. Tell us about class number 3.
Yes, exactly. So class number 3 is the science behind Neville's concept of revision. Neville's teaching on revision is a game changer for me and probably for many people who have used the technique to get themselves out of a sticky situation or sort of undo something from the past. And so in this class, we'll focus on it. We'll discover together the new findings from quantum physics that propose the frameworks that help us understand why the past is alterable. We'll learn how the scientific perspective on the faculty of memory as an observer helps illuminate Neville's teachings on, again, why revision works. So this will essentially be the science behind the efficacy of revision and the framework of how our memory really does impact the world around us and impact kind of goes into the future and continues to create.
Neville says himself, revision is the most important thing that he's taught. He says that in his own lecture about the pre-lectures of revision. So I think really taking a look at this and illuminating the ways in which science is catching up and saying, yeah, actually the past is alterable. This can be done, and there's evidence for it. So cool. And I'm really glad that you're bringing this to the School of Imagination for those who wish to deepen their understanding of
Yes.
how the world works. Okay, so that's number 3. Tell us about class number 4.
Yes, so class number 4 explores concept of parallel realities in the multiverse through Neville's lens. Now, Neville talked a lot about the serial universe, and he said scientists will one day explain why there is a serial universe. And so maybe he didn't use the word parallel realities the way that maybe contemporary physicists or contemporary folks in metaphysics might use them, but he had an even more accurate understanding of how our realities actually, let's say, time-space blocks. So without getting too into it, we're going to, explore the truth about our multiverse through Neville's lens, and kind of go into some of his more intricate teachings that aren't necessarily explored a lot, intricate theory about it, and kind of glean some understanding of what it means to live in parallel realities or a multiverse where everything already exists in the now moment.
I noticed in your course description here, it says the findings may shock you. Ooh, I can't resist a good tease like that. Can you enlighten me just a little bit? What about these findings may shock us?
I think there's a few things. It kind of shocked me that Neville had an even deeper understanding of how reality works and how everything exists in the now, and how there's a serial universe that we're experiencing through the gaze of our consciousness. The fact that he was able to get it to that level of intricacy, because it wasn't just metaphor, because a lot of these ancients and mystics taught in metaphor and in stories, which is beautiful, but he kind of went beyond that and actually spoke about it in real fact, in sort of real distilled truth, in no nonsense scientific verbiage in a way. And so that was pretty shocking to me. And I think exploring these ideas helped me understand a lot more as to why it is that when he says creation is finished or your desire is finished, what that really means. It kind of put that into perspective and brought a lot more, reality to that, like brought a lot more credence to that idea, because it can kind of feel like Neville's trying to make us feel better. Your desire is done, or like creation's finished, don't worry. But it's actually accurate from a scientific perspective when you look at the truth about the multiverse and time-space block reality.
Class number 5, explain a little bit about that.
Yes, so for the first 4 classes, we mostly focused on quantum physics and some cosmology. This final class will be exploring neuroscience behind imaginal acts. So this will go into the science behind why Neville's teachings about how to use the imagination, so his teachings about how to apply conscious use of imagination, are so incredible. So we'll explain how the brain works, how to best utilize our brain according to the scientists, and how understanding the mind helps us understand this observer-dependent reality. So if we're talking about quantum physics and cosmology, we're talking about the physical world and like the history of the universe and the universe on a large scale. When we're talking about neuroscience, we're talking about the observer themselves, through the brain, where most scientists believe the consciousness sits, right? So there's a really incredible source of wealth of knowledge that is maybe not as controversial as cosmology and quantum physics. And so there's a lot of already like a breadth of depth of knowledge there. So we'll be able to explore that neuroscience to help us understand the observer and help us understand Neville's the amazing parallels between the scientific literature that already exists on this and Neville's amazing technical understanding of how to best use the imagination. What did he emphasize about how to use the imagination, and what did he emphasize as the important parts of his techniques? And I wanted to kind of draw the parallels from what science says is important for the brain and what Neville says is important for imagining.
Wow, this series really sounds like, and of course it's by design, it sounds like it has a lot of value for any serious student of the human imagination to again really look beneath the hood, or kind of pull back behind the veil and like see what's actually going on. What are the mechanics of how all of these things work, and then developing the understanding, developing the literacy. And I remember, in some of our preparation for this, you talked about one of your stated objectives being to kind of remove the gatekeeping around some of these scientific topics. And once you have a basic understanding of what these terms mean and what scientists are trying to say, it really does remove the barrier to this whole world of research that really can be quite expansive in terms of, really helping us deepen our understanding and our confidence in these ideas.
Yes.
After these 5 classes, we're going to do a special recap class, which is going to be a Q&A. And that Q&A is going to be live. In fact, all these classes are going to be taught live. Of course, if you register for the course, you also get access to all of the recordings. And you get access to this special Q&A, answer your questions about, what are your thoughts about, how this idea matches this idea, right? And we'll explore it together. Or what are your thoughts about how to apply this or how to explain this to someone else? We're really going to go into that, and we're going to have a special period of time for this Q&A just to really help it land so that each student who joins this class really has the opportunity to make the most of it. So that's awesome. Very much looking forward to that. What are you most excited about to share in this class, in this series?
I'm so excited to provide a bridge, a starting point bridge between these 2 areas, let's say mysticism and conscious creation, and an exploration of the self, really, and cutting edge science, or and tried and true science, and the bridge between these is so exciting to me, because both folks, we're talking about mystics and scientists, have a deep desire to learn about who we are and why the hell we're here on this planet. And they both lived in the end of trying to find the truth. This is an earnest desire to know who we are. And that's where I sit. That's my desire as well. And it seems, to the uninitiated, that they're saying different things completely. It seems on the surface that they're incompatible. And I'm not the first one to do this, to start building the bridge, but I'd love to, put some more bricks on that bridge to say that actually both of these groups of people, and, both of these, let's say even institutions and, groups, let's say, that desire deeply to know who we are and how reality works and why we're here and the truth that make up the laws of this planet, are actually saying the same thing. The difference is the perspective and vantage point. Because with mystics, there's this belief that they can get an answer by going within, and scientists are getting answers solely through external searching. And so, knowing what we know, we can use the truth of who we are, the truth of what creates this reality. We'll take these mystics at their word and shine light on all this work that the scientists are doing. I think it's an amazing partnership, bringing them both together and really distilling what it is that we can get out of both areas and both ways of seeing the world and both ways of getting the truth. And science is rather gatekeeping. Science can be very elitist, and it can be kind of it feels like it's for only a certain group of people. And so building that bridge as well to someone who maybe is more mystical minded or more spiritual, more into the spiritual world, building that bridge towards the scientific side of things, because it's fun, because it's exciting, because it's actually more accessible than you think. I think that's what I'm most excited about.
Awesome. Thank you very much for sharing that. I so much value here for anyone who desires to deepen their understanding of the human imagination, how it works, take it one step further, and then also have the opportunity to interface and connect with other people in the community who share this desire. There's a lot to be said for that as well. Thank you, Shveta, for joining us for this. Really looking forward to this class. And for those of you that are interested in joining this class, just check out the link below, get all of the details, and be sure to attend the information session. It'll be kind of an overview class that's scheduled for the end of this month. Imagine wisely, my friends. We'll talk to y'all soon.